Hello YouTube, this is Wisps and Whimsy, and you are watching Starting Out Solitary. Our topic this week is spells and rituals. So I have tried to shoot this a couple different times and I always end up going long, so I'm going to try to keep this short and to the point so I don't waste your time. When I'm thinking about creating spells and rituals, and I will admit I don't do a whole lot of spell work, and I'll explain why in a minute, my first thing that I do is consider the intention of either the spell or the ritual. Now for me, spells are my trying to achieve something or working, and I'm trying to use assistance outside of myself. If I think that I can create what I'm trying to achieve without outside assistance, then I don't try to work a spell. To me, that's just unnecessary. I also try to look at what is going to be the outcome and how's that going to affect others around me, or just that greater good. So if it's going to be something that's very selfish and self-centered and may do harm to others, then I'm probably not going to do it. Now, I'm not saying that this is true for all paths, because certainly there are others who feel differently. And if that's true for you, then that's fine. We all have different paths and different ways that we approach things. My personal approach is that I try not to do harm to others, and I try to use my practice in the least selfish way possible. I want to be more of a giving person than that. And that's just my personal preference in how I work. I don't consider myself a white witch or a fluffy witch or a good witch, specifically, but, that tends to be the way my practice veers. For me, the darker side of things tends to be, within my shadow work and that sort of thing. When I'm trying to do a spell, it tends to be protective magic or healing magic, as you might imagine, based on what I just told you. And I try to do things so that I work with the energies of whatever it is that I'm incorporating. For instance, I like to do a lot of kitchen magic. It tends to be what most resonates with me, and I think it's really important to find something that does resonate with you, because if you're not syncing your energies just right, if it's not feeling right to you, it's probably not going to have the outcome that you're trying to achieve. So for me, kitchen work is easy. It feels right to me. I like to do that nurturing thing, and so that works for me. So, for instance, my husband was sick, and I put together a hot toddy for him, and while I was doing it, I was not only using spices and ingredients that I knew would help aid his healing, I was also using my intentions and sending healing energies into it. And then when he received it, of course, he wanted to feel better, and he knew that I had done this out of love for him, and so he was able to receive those energies, and he was receptive to what I was giving him. And I think that's also important, is not only what are you doing, but how receptive is the person or the situation that you're trying to do or working on. So all of that is very complex, I guess, when you really start to break it down. But I think all of those things are things you consider as you're working a spell. Now, Tara said something that kind of made me laugh, because she said, you don't have to do a rhyme in your spells. And I think she's totally right. Absolutely agree. It just made me laugh because, when we start out, we tend to read all of these 101 type books, and of course they use a lot of rhyming spells. And, there probably is power in that. I have found myself using rhyming spells, just the ones that I made off the top of my head, as I was doing protective magic in my home. And that's why I laughed, because I'm guilty of it. But I think it's where your comfort level is, and there probably is some level of power in using that, because wordcraft is very important. And we all know, words, the sticks and stones, words can never hurt you, but yet at the same time, words are very powerful. And so I think, yeah, sure, of course that can be an important part of your spellcraft if that's what you're looking for. So I would say wordcraft is probably something to look into if you're interested in that, and consider it as you're doing spells and rituals. Now, as far as rituals are concerned, I feel like those are more to mark a specific place or space and time or event. So I don't approach it quite the same way as I do spell work. I think anytime you feel that a ritual is appropriate, you can do a major ritual or you can do minor rituals. I tend more toward minor rituals because, that's what resonates with me. I just kind of feel more grounded within my home and within the area outside, within our woods. And so it just lends itself to me doing small rituals as I go. I just feel the need to mark a specific place and time, on a summer's afternoon or an autumn morning, something that just really resonated with me and I felt grounded in the moment and I just wanted to mark it. I think there are those kind of rituals that can be very simple, and I think then there are also more, you can do more stylized and ceremonial rituals to mark things like, for instance, hand fastings or weddings, or the birth of a child, or the death of a loved one, or even just the turning of the wheel of the year. And I think those rituals have a different tone from the everyday rituals that you might do. Whenever you do any ritual, I think it's important to consider where you are, to consider, are you working with outside forces or are you working within yourself? And what can you surround yourself with if you need to? Because frequently when I'm doing, some kind of inner ritual, like shadow work type rituals, then I don't use a lot outside of myself because most of it is an inner working. But if it is something you're connecting outside of yourself, then you might want to think about things that you can use to help you connect with that outer energy. If you're trying to connect with your ancestors, then maybe you want to have a specific thing that had their energies and your energies connect to help make that happen. You also need to think about how are you going to end things, because how easy is it to jump into something and then kind of just peter off because you don't know how to end it. So I think it's important to also consider, what are you going to do to wrap things up? How do you want the energy to feel when you're done? And so you want to, again, think about those words and the power that they hold to help you bring closure to the moment. A lot of people like to have things like foods, cakes, and ale, or that sort of thing, things to kind of rejuvenate you at the end of a ritual or at the end of a working. And I think that's a good thing. It's good to kind of nourish yourself after you've done something. So I would recommend that personally. I mean, who doesn't like to eat? Not me. But anyway, I hope all of this has been helpful to you, and if you have any comments or questions, please leave them below. I know this is a very private and personal thing that we each do, and maybe you don't feel comfortable sharing it, and that's fine. But if you have anything you'd like to share, I would love to hear about how you work rituals or spells, or what you feel or think about them, because it's definitely something where we have a lot of different ideas about it. So I believe that's all I have to say to you tonight, and I still made it run long. But anyway, this is Wisps and Whimsy, wishing you many, many blessings.